sit. This is Franklin, and this is Franklin's roadmap to success. So basically, he's a really good dog for the most part, except for the problem that he has with the car. He also does it with bicycles, skateboards? Motorcycles. So the technique that we described above, you can do the same sort of thing. However, if it was, I would practice, and the order I would practice is pedestrians walking up the car first, and then go through all of the different variances of the different types of pedestrians. Men with hats, women in skirts, sticks and hats, and all sorts of different stuff. Once you get to the point where those people can come all the way to the car, give him a treat, and he's comfortable, then we're ready to do it with bicycles. And with bicycles, I would have the person walking the bicycle up at the same principle. As soon as the dog freezes, we stop, the person turns and walks away and take note of whatever the distance is first, and then stop 1 foot beyond that, and then approach from all sorts of different angles, and the guardian inside is giving a treat. I would probably use the same command word of bud for if they're walking or motorcycle or anything. You don't need to have different ones. But now we're creating this positive association for all the different things. And again, make a list of all the things people, the criteria is reactive to, so that way we can kind of make a list and systematically deprogram it and create a positive association with all of them. Now, we also, going back to the beginning of the session, we started talking about exercise. Most people don't exercise their dog enough. 95% of my clients, when I ask them how much exercise do you your dog get every day, they say not enough. Same exact two-word answer. Everybody knows it, nobody does it. Because we don't have time to exercise our dogs the way we think they need to be exercised. Fact of the matter is, dogs his size probably sleep anywhere from about 14 to 16 hours a day. When he's asleep, he's recharging his batteries, and then he's ready to go. So dogs need to kind of get exercise and then sleep and recover, or exercise, sleep and recover, recharge the batteries, and exercise and sleep and recover. So all day long is the kind of this wave. And so we typically think, I'll take you for a 3-mile walk, which is great, but then at 2 or 3 hours, the dog needs more exercise, and we don't have any time. So 3 1-mile walks is better, sprinkled out throughout the day is better than 1 3-mile walk. But we live in the Midwest, it's either ridiculously hot or ridiculously cold, and so I've come up with some creative ways of exercising. We can't do the doggy stairmaster here because the guardian lives in a 1-level house, but she can play fetch, which she does. Now, I would definitely talk to your landlord about it and see if you can get that moved back, because if you can move it towards the front of the house, that creates a whole different, you can maybe even have somebody over there give him a treat, and then you're over here give him a treat. So the person calls him over there, he goes all the way over there, and you come up with one word that means to go there, call that like Mexico, and goes over here and you call this one Los Estados, or whatever you want to say. And so then you take turns calling him back and forth, and they assign the command word. So there's one command that needs to go this side of the house, the gate, one command that goes here. And after you reps that enough, you say different names for each side. You meet here, and you can say Mexico, he runs over there, and then nothing's there, and he comes runs back to you, give him a treat. You'd also like leave a treat over there for him to do it. But the idea is to come up with creative forms of exercise. So playing fetch inside is one of the analogs the guardians come up with, which works great. First time I would do it with an empty stomach. Remember, all exercise should be done without any food in the stomach because it can cause the stomach to flip over and can be fatal. So we exercise him with whatever the activity is with an empty stomach, and we keep doing it over and over again until Franklin's like, you're crazy. I've done that 100 times. I'm on the $100 bill, but I ain't gonna do it more than 100 times. Now we know what the maximum number is. Most people will never take the time to figure out the maximum number. We usually don't exercise ourselves at 100% capacity. We exercise ourselves at 50 to 75%. So the idea is to find out what the maximum number is, and then we can start kind of playing around the elements. So playing fetch is a great one. Scent games is another one that you can do. Just Google scent games, hiding treats around your house. Also, we talked about getting a snuffle mat and a Omega Paw treat ball to feed him out of treat dispensing toys. That will boost his self-esteem and confidence. It will help him burn energy from sniffing. It's also calming and relaxing and reassuring. And so there's multiple things that happen. So it's just hiding treats around the house. And there's all these articles you can find. They'll talk about cadavers. That's okay. You don't have to get dead things in your house. But the idea is to train him to, hunt, and he runs down around the house using his nose to find different things. That's a nice distraction. And again, great way of burning some energy. On the walks, the guardian does a good job of letting him sniff, except for, she said, unless he got sniffed too intensely, then she would pull him away. But sniffing intensely is the same thing as me looking at something really closely. I'm really interested, and I'm getting more value out of the close examination. So for him, when he's really sniffing things, most people don't realize dogs burn more energy on a walk by sniffing than they do from walking. So if he's really power sniffing, that's like power lifting. You should like let him keep on doing those doggy bench presses or whatever it is, because he's really burning his energy, as long as it's safe to do so. If you try to sniff another dog doesn't like it, or you're in somebody's yard and they don't like it, that's different. But whenever possible, always try to let him sniff as much as you can. And so on walks, as long as it's safe to do so, he does that. And instead of having a circuit and saying, I'm gonna walk around these 8 blocks and then get back to my front door, we look at anything that slows us down as a negative. But if our goal is to let the dog sniff, we just say, I'm gonna walk for 20 minutes. I have 10 minutes to walk in this direction. Once the 10-minute timer comes up, I cross the street so we have fresh sniffs, and I come back for 10 more minutes. I might only make it one house. I don't care. Because if my dog's getting a lot of sniffs in, that's the name of the game. You could also get a doggy backpack. Remember, this should be probably about $45 to $80, unless you want to get the really heavy duty one. If you get the cheap one, it'll fall apart. So it's another way that you could burn a little energy. The last thing we talked about was feeding out of treat dispensing toys. Like I said, the Snuffle Mat and the Omega Paw Treat Ball. I would order both those on Amazon. The Snuffle Mat, it's the gray one that'll be the first one that comes up. It's, I think, $35. So you feed him out of his meals out of those. That makes feeding him like a walk as well. So I'd like you to come up with a routine that is consistent, that is reasonable for you to do on a daily basis. Maybe you get up in the morning, take him outside, let him do his business. After he goes potty, you come inside and you play the fetch game a certain number of times. Remember, you should play around with the number of quantities based on the activity afterwards. So if you're going to work, maybe if his maximum number of fetches is 50, maybe before we go to work, we do 40. And then we let him out do his business. Then we bring him inside. We do 40 fetches. Then he's all worked, wiped out. He needs 10 minutes to recover. While he's doing that 10 minutes, we go shower and get our morning ritual done. When we get done, he's recovered. Then we're gonna feeding him out of a Snuffle Mat or an Omega Paw Treat Ball. That's like getting an extra walk in. So by the time you leave for work, he's like, man, can you go to work? I'm exhausted already. I gotta recover from this. And so we set the dog up for success. Like I said, remember that the quantities of exercise is gonna depend on different things that you're gonna do. All right, so basically finding that right combination, and maybe we come home from work, maybe you play a little fetch, then you get a veg out a little bit and relax. Maybe you feed him out of a snack out of the Omega Paw Treat Ball after he fetches, and then you kind of lounge, have a beer, or just read or do whatever you do to relax and unwind. When you get done, then maybe you take him for a little bit of a walk an hour later. So the idea is to do these every 2 to 4 hours and set him up for success, or set him up for success ahead of time. If he's gonna bark when the kids come home from school next door, if they ever go back to school, then maybe if they come back at school at 3:15, maybe we take him, play fetch with him at 3:50 or 2:50. We play fetch for like 7 minutes, then we give 10 minutes to recover. Right around the kids walking home, the dog's just exhausted and he's taking a nap on the floor. So we got him out of the behavior pattern of running over and barking at the child. All right, we also talked about rules. I can show people all day long how to fix dog behavior problems, but if the dog doesn't respect you as a human, as a leader, it's not gonna matter what I show you. So for dogs, leaders are the ones who enforce rules. Children go through life probing to see what they can get. Dogs go through life probing, waiting for somebody to say no. That's where the boundary or the edge or the limit is. The leaders are the ones who enforce the rules. We have a tendency to think of rules as a negative because of the way rules are introduced to us, but the more rules that we have for the dog, the more relaxed the dog can become, because it doesn't have to worry about being in charge of everything. A lot of us have no rules for our dog, and that confuses them and think they need to protect us. Now, a couple of things dog psychology-wise before we get into rules. Anything your dog is doing when you pet is what you're rewarding. If you pet a fearful dog or an anxious dog or an aggressive dog or an excited dog, you're gonna make him whatever they are doing at the moment. So if your dog is fearful or reacts to something, the best thing to do is increase the distance or move that thing away so it doesn't react unless you're doing something like we did in the exercise above. If you do want to placate or support the dog, you can lay your hand on them. They associate this touch with affection, but as soon as you start petting or scratching, you're gonna make it worse. It's probably the most common mistake for dogs, for humans with dogs. So just lay your hand as opposed to petting. Now the flip side of that is anything, well, not the flip side, yeah, I guess the flip side is for dogs, anything that they're doing that you don't specifically disagree with has your seal of approval. So in a very real way, not saying no is akin to saying yes to dogs. Also, good attention and bad attention from us is the same thing. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because they bark, they eat our furniture, they jump up, they counter-surf. That gets an immediate correction. But they come to us, we ignore that. They sit down, we ignore that. It lays down, we ignore that. And so that's why I'll talk about petting with a purpose and passive training to kind of flip that and get them to do the things that we want them to do. All right, so for the rules, burning energy is a form of currency. So if the dog sees us getting up and enforcing a rule, even if they don't like the rule, it's limiting their access to things, they do see us acting like a leader, and that can be reassuring for them. So I've suggested really 4 or 5 rules. First rule is not allowing dogs on the furniture, because dogs, the higher they sit, the more rank or status they have. So putting those X pads, it's expensive, $11 to $12 a piece on Amazon and Chewy, but then you don't have to do that for it. And it does it for it. At the same time, teach the dog to go to the dog bed. If you forget how to do that, message me. I can send you a video, link to a video that shows you how to do that. So now, nobody on, and the rules should be in place for a minimum of 90 days or as long as the problem's going on. 90 days would be the absolute bare bones minimum if you did everything perfect and the dog's behavior got exactly the way you want. Almost never is the case. So 90 days or as long as these problems are still going on. And then after that period of time, I can give a reward that I can let the dog break a rule, but it shouldn't be for a reward. It should just be because I want to let the dog break the rule because I want it on the couch or whatever the case may be. So the first rule is not being allowed on the furniture. Bed is separately, but bed, he has to wait for you to get in bed, and then you invite him up and you tell him where you want him to go. And if he doesn't like it, there's a whole lot of floor for him. At the same time, set up a dog bed in the room that you're hanging out, so he has a place to hang out. I usually like to hang it out, put it underneath the TV if there's room, because the dog's like, wow, look at him. They're just looking at me the whole time when I'm really just watching the TV above. Okay, other rules, you have to sit at the door. Go to the door, say sit once. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down, wait for 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back and command him again. Sit. If he doesn't sit this time, I sit down for 2 minutes, and 4 minutes, 8 minutes. I keep double length of time. But as soon as he sits, man, I fly that door open. So before you do this, I'd probably have a leash on him, so if he does want to go out, you can go out with him. So this will teach the dog to sit at the door as opposed to scratching or jumping at the door to get a chance to go out. Then I would do it on the way inside. I would do it all sorts of different things. You want to eat, sit before I start preparing your food. You want to play fetch, drop the ball and sit before I even consider picking it up. Sit in the car before I even stop and open the door to let you out. So sitting is a more subordinate position. The more you have him practice sitting, the better. So basically, other rules shouldn't be allowed within 7 feet of, well, depending on how big your place is, about 5 to 7 feet of when you're eating. Don't feed him animal people food from the plate. If you do want to feed him, put it in the microwave and give it to him the next day, but I would even recommend not doing that. And then basically, let me see, not be allowed within 7 feet of you when you're eating, not allowed to be in the kitchen when we're preparing food, and you use the same exercise that I used here. Now you can go to my website and you search for the word either invisible or kitchen, and it'll have videos that explain how to do it, but if you have any questions, message me or can't find them, I'm happy to send them to you. All right, so those are some examples of rules, but again, I would ask him to sit before various things. Also, make sure that you are eating something before you feed him. And then for feeding, if he goes to sniff the bowl and he walks away without eating anything, as soon as he walks away, pick up the bowl, dump it empty, and put the empty bowl back down. I would probably get him into eating his food properly out of the bowl first before I switch to the Omega Paw treat ball and the snuffle mat. Come up with, use that passive training. Every time he takes the first bite of food, say your favorite meal, lasagna, meatball, pork chop, whatever it is. After a while, that becomes his command word to eat. Come up with another one for water. You name your favorite cocktail. Call it, Shirley Temple or mimosa or whatever you want to say. You say mimosa, and he goes to start lapping up water. Your friend's like, "Did you really make him a mimosa?" No, but that's his command word. And remember, dogs can read facial expressions, so that'll help motivate him. It'll also help you kind of keep the mood nice and relaxed. I would say celebrate. Crash. You just laid down, didn't you? Yeah. All right. Let me see. Where was I? My brain is a crazy place. It'll come back to me. All right, so for eating. So make sure that you're eating something first and you give him permission to eat. And when he goes over and sniffs it, as he walks away, pick it up and dump that bowl empty and put the empty bowl back down. He doesn't eat again until next meal. It's not unusual for dogs to take a day or two before they get accustomed to this. We're not saying that you can't eat. We're just saying you eat when I tell you to eat. So later on, if he has medication or things like that, we give him food that he needs to have with his medication without having to give him steak or something like that. Also, his weight is just like me. He probably could lose a couple of pounds. And so I recommend that the Guardian get about 6 to 8 fresh green beans. Don't cook them, don't boil them, just chop them up in little bits about the same size as kibble. Put it in his kibble and substitute about 10% of the kibble out. Read the bag for his portion. Make sure you feed him a good quality food. The better quality food that you feed your dog, the more they'll process and less poop will come out of your dog. A lot of us, we feed our dogs really cheap fillers and foods that aren't great. I'm going to leave you a card for the Green Spot. I would recommend you talk to the Green Spot about what you feed them. If you tell them what you feed them and they're not big fans of it, ask them what they have as an analog. They have different price points. Tell them what you're looking at. They like to do raw food. I don't have time to feed my dogs raw, so I feed out of, I just kibble, dry kibble, but it's good. Sometimes feeding dogs better quality food will help with that. They get bored. All right, so basically I eat first, then the dog eats after me. That is another way to reinforce a healthy leader-follower dynamic. And if he doesn't eat, we pick it up and dump it, and the empty bowl gets down until the next meal. Once you use the Omega Paw treat ball, as soon as he walks away from that, I would pick it up or snuffle mat, because otherwise sometimes they drag it around. So you eat when I tell you to, where the food goes away and you have to wait till the next meal. That helps him see you acting like more of a leader. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if you want to pet the dog or he's asking or demanding attention from you. Remember, leaders tell, followers ask. So he nudges you, you give him a counter order, tell him to sit. If he sits within 3 seconds the very first time that you say it, you reach him under and pet him under the chin if all things are equal. Just don't ever pet him up here. And he scratches butt or whatever. And then pet him as much or as little as you want and say the command word. So I say sit. When the dog sits, then I give it a treat or pet, and then I say sit a second time. That second time is the most important time to hear it. Now in this case, you're gonna say sit. When he sits, you click, then you give him a treat, and then you would say the word sit a second time. So when you're using this, you're gonna add a fourth step. But this will really help him dial in and be very interested in doing what you want to do. Okay, so he eats his food, or he eats a couple bites and walks away, you pick it up, dump it. After a while, he'll eat everything that you give him. And if he's only eating 50% of what you feed him, start feeding him 50% of the scoop or whatever it is. He should get in the habit of cleaning his plate, and eventually you can start adding in more food. But again, for him, probably better if he had a little bit less food. He'll live longer, and he'll have a healthier life if we can take off some weight. All right, so for petting with a purpose is if the dog nudges you or tells you what to do, leaders tell, followers ask. So when he gives you an order, give him a counter order, tell him to sit. If he sits, pet him under his chin, say sit, and then pet him as much or as little as you want. If he doesn't sit, lean back in your chair, watch some TV, read a book, paint a painting, whatever it is. Show him I have other things that I could do. I wanted to make you number one. You couldn't bother to do the smallest thing you do as a dog and sit, so I moved on to other things. If he's already sitting here, tell him to sit here or lay down. Don't practice the shake. After a while, he'll recognize I can't tell the human what to do anymore. I have to ask, and better than ask, I have to pay for the privilege of her attention. And he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for that attention. When he does, make sure you pet him for that. If your boyfriend's around, have him say paycheck if he suspects you're petting without a purpose. Even if you didn't write stop petting, tell him to sit, pet him under shin, say sit, then and then say, actually, Levy, I did it the right way, but thank you for reminding me because I do forget. That's petting with a purpose. You want to pet the dog, or the dog wants you to pet it, or it prepays. Passive training, or what I call celebrate, is when the dog does things on its own. So earlier I talked about the dog comes up and sits in our feet, we ignore that, lays down, ignore that, drops the ball, ignores it. But as soon as it starts chewing our table or barking at the window, we correct it. Good attention, bad attention, same thing for dogs. So this will help flip it. So every time he comes to you and on his own, without you asking, pet him under his chin and say come. Every time he sits down, pet him and say sit. Every time he lays down, pet him and say crash. He takes his first bite of food, say pork chop. Every time he takes first drink of water, call it agua or margarita or whatever you want to say. Name all your individual toys. So he brings you a toy and call that, no, that's geometry over there. You know, I wanted the pizza slice. And so after a while, he'll be able to bring you whatever toy you want, and you're having a richer vocabulary for it, which will make you have a better relationship with your dog because he understands what you want, and you can communicate what I want verbally as well as tactilely by rewarding him after the fact. So that's celebrating the things that he does that we like. We also talked about the escalating consequences off camera. If you forget what those are, let me know, but that's how you establish that invisible boundary. And then we did the thing above in the video. Now, after the video, I went over a little bit of clicker training outside. This is not a bad thing for you to do on walks as well. A lot of people will take, if you have a treat pouch like this, you can click it to your leggings or whatever. I can have a bunch of treats in here, and so I have access, but they don't have to be in the pocket of my pants. So a lot of time I leave my pants on full, the dog will chew up your pocket because it smells like the treats. So if you have a bunch of these with you and there's nobody around, and you have this with you, I get a whatever you call these little straps, so you can have it kind of on your, just be walking and need it, you can pull it out and click pretty quickly. Remember, you only have 3 seconds. So basically you're walking around and there's no reason to, just stop, tell him to sit. When he sits, treat, and then we keep on walking. If he's walking the heel position, click, treat, say heel. So after a while, instead of him looking at everything else, he's checking in with you every once in a while. And that's something we sometimes do as well. Every time he looks up at me, I might eyes or look or attention. So now we're creating a command word and we're taking the baggage out of it because he looks at me, then I click, then he gets a reward. So it's like anytime I want a treat, I just look up at the human and she hooks me up. After a while, then now we've assigned and marked a command word with it. So now we say attention, he looks up expecting a treat. And at that point, we do give him the treat. But after a while, you just say attention, he looks up and maybe you just pet him a little bit. You get a treat every once in a while. He never knows when he's getting it. Make sure you don't stop the treats completely. But that's a really powerful way to get him started. And if he doesn't listen to you very well on walks, a lot of people start their walks this way. They exercise the dog first. They give the dog 10 minutes to recover. Then they pull out the clicker, and inside the house, they put the dog on a leash, and then they click when the leash is on, give him a treat and say uniform, costume, whatever it is. And remember, if he's really excited and you want that video, you can search for Calm Leash on my website, and that video will show you how all the steps I described to you on how to get him to be calm when you're leashing him up. If you can't find it, message me, I'm happy to go over it with you. So before your walk inside your house, maybe do 3 or 5 sits walking around your living room. Now remember, if you say sit and he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, don't say it again. Walk a couple more steps away and then say it again. This way he's like, oh, messed up, I didn't get rewarded, I didn't get the payment for that time. I'm gonna make sure I listen to her and do what she wants next time, so now I get that reward. And that will get him dialed into listening to you. But again, when you're walking, every time you just watch him, every time he looks at you, attention. That's a powerful one that's super easy that will really pay big benefits down the road. So practice this for other things. When you're teaching them new tricks and commands, dogs that have no more skills are more confident and they're able to brush things off. So if you do have an inclination to want to teach him how to roll over, play dead, or whatever it is, you can build his confidence and give him a lot of other things to distract him. Remember, for me, my dogs, if it lays down, I say crash. If it lays down with its hind legs out to the side, I call it side saddle. If it lays on its side, I call that flop. And if it lays on its back, I call that pancake. So that's 4 different commands that you can teach by just watching your dog, waiting for it, and it lays on the ground on the floor. As soon as it shuffles its feet out, side saddle. As soon as it flops, flop, and so on. All right, I was going to say Washington, but it's not Washington, it's Franklin. Franklin, come. So I'll do it right here. Come. So he came to me. I clicked for him coming to the approximate area that I wanted. I clicked to let him know that's what I wanted. I gave him a treat, and I told him why I'm giving him a treat. Sit. This is Franklin. That's Franklin's nose. And this is Franklin's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.